February the 6th, 2026. Türkiye is marking 3 years since twin earthquakes struck the south of the country, killing more than 50,000 people and displacing more than 1 million. The first earthquake had a magnitude of 7.7. It hit the province of Kahramanmaras and released energy 2,000 times more powerful than the atom bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. And hours later, a 7.7 magnitude quake shook the same area. Known as the disaster of the century here in Türkiye, Friday is a day of commemorations to remember the victims. The disaster affected around 14 million people in total, so it produced a huge rebuilding challenge as well. Bera Karaman has more on the Turkish government's response.
The 7.7 and 7.6 magnitude quakes brought devastation on a ground scale. Kahramanmaras was at the epicenter of the twin quakes, with the tremors affecting 11 provinces. Hatay, 150 kilometers away from the epicenter, was among the hardest hit city. Buildings were reduced to rubble and neighborhoods destroyed. Adıyaman also suffered heavy damage. Thousands of buildings either collapsed or were impacted. Reconstruction would cost more than $104 billion. In just 3 years, the Turkish government has actioned its rebuilding plan. By the end of 2025, more than 450,000 houses have been handed over to earthquake survivors. The efforts to rebuild safer and stronger communities, a sign of the commitment to never forget those who lost their lives and provide a better future for those who survived.
My colleague Asa Atbash is in Kahramanmaras, the epicenter of the twin earthquakes. Let's start with Kubra Koç in Hatay. You're in the worst affected province, Kubra, and presumably you've been there for a few days. And you were also there on the day itself. I remember talking with you. I remember at one stage there was a survivor was pulled out of the rubble and you were following the rescue team that extracted that person.
Exactly, Adnan. That was a baby, and it was the 36 hours since the earthquake struck. At the time, a baby being rescued out of the rubble was news, of course, because it started to happen even more often. But at the time, there was this uncertainty, this grief, this disbelief about what was really going on among the residents of the earthquake zone. And that rescue was giving everyone hope. Despite the devastation, despite the destruction, despite the large-scale loss of human life and emotional toll, there was still hope. Search and rescue units were everywhere, and they were working around the clock to bring more people out of the rubble alive. Of course, from these days to today, so much has been changed. These cities look different now. We are at the heart of Antakya. We are at the heart of Hatay. Antakya is the historic city center of Hatay. And the building behind me is the historic municipality building. It was completely reduced to rubble during the earthquake. Right now you can see it rebuilt, restored, and being operational again. 3 years on, of course, this gives so much hope, and this also symbolizes the resilience of the residents of Hatay and residents of earthquake zone. Earlier this week, as you said, we visited Hatay's governor, we visited some of the families who returned to their homes, we visited a school, we talked to students. Hatay's governor told us that this very building and other landmarks being restored and rebuilt, other newly built earthquake-resistant houses, and also new school buildings reopened, signify that Hatay, like a phoenix, is rising from its ashes. That's the feeling right now on the ground among the residents of Hatay. Of course, today is a very, today comes with deep emotions, mixed feelings. Grief is still there. A profound sense of longing for what was lost, for the loved ones, for the houses, for the homes, and for the life before the earthquake is still there. But again, there is hope and there is resilience, Adnan.
Kubra, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Aslı in Kahramanmaras. You're where at the Grand Bazaar, which presumably was also destroyed by those quakes?
That's right, Adnan. I'm at the Grand Bazaar of Kahramanmaras, and this is one of the many places, many landmarks and iconic sites in the region that has been restored. A part of this bazaar have been completely rebuilt, while the rest of the shops have been renewed by Turkish officials. Now, I think it's really important to reflect on what has been going on here on the ground to be able to understand. Of course, we have been talking about the reconstruction process. We have been talking about these new housing units that have been delivered to citizens. But it's not only about housing units, is it? These people are trying to go back to life. They are trying to reshape their lives after they have lost so many loved ones. They have lost their homes, shops. So Turkish officials here have been telling us that while they have been focusing on the reconstruction process, they haven't only focused on reconstructing the houses. They have also gave a quite big importance to reconstructing, rebuilding the historical landmarks to be able to provide an area for these people who have been grieving for the past 3 years to find a place for themselves to come back to life. Now, Kahramanmaras is a place that is famous for its handcrafts, and there have been historical shopkeepers here who have also lost their businesses during that process, during the earthquake time. And now this place coming back to life also gives them hope to be able to continue their lives. Now, this reconstruction here is not only physical, but it's also human. We have been here over the past week and we have been talking to people to be able to understand how they have been keeping their lives going, how they are so resilient. And what they have been telling us are very touching stories. I have spoken to a family in a Ebrar housing unit. That's one of the iconic sites here that have been demolished completely. And this is her story.
3 years on, Kahramanmaras is still rebuilding. Not just homes, but lives. One of the hardest hit places was the Ebrar apartment complex. Entire blocks collapsed in seconds, turning this neighborhood into a symbol of national tragedy.
Today, this place looks very different. The buildings have been completely rebuilt, but the reconstruction here is not just physical, it's also human. We are here to listen to one woman's story, a story of survival, loss, and what it means to return home, even when home holds everything you lost.
On the night of the earthquake, Gülseren was not here. She was visiting her daughter in Eskişehir, hundreds of kilometers away from Kahramanmaras.
Ben onun ziyaretine gitmiştim.
My return was delayed for a few reasons. I was supposed to come back the day before the earthquake, but I changed my ticket. That's where my destiny changed. If I had returned that day, I would have been at home.
That change of plan saved her life. But inside this building, her husband and 3 children were trapped. She heard the news while she was away. Then came days, she says, felt like a nightmare. One by one, she said goodbye to her family.
Yani aslında
It feels like I died with them that day. But God entrusted me with my daughter, and I hold on to her. I try to stay strong for her. Life goes on somehow. We try to fill the time.
After the funerals, staying here was impossible. Grief pushed her away from Kahramanmaras, but it followed her wherever she went. For 3 years, she lived out of a suitcase, moving between cities, sleeping on sofas, never feeling settled, until she made a decision many would find impossible: to return.
At first, I was against moving back, but when the construction finished, I felt like my neighbors were calling me back. It's a strange feeling, but now I feel I am home again, back to myself. For 3 years, I felt like a refugee. Now I cook in my own kitchen, I sleep in my own bed.
3 years after the disaster, the Ebrar apartment complex stands again. And inside one of these homes, grief and hope live side by side. Gülseren says the earthquake taught her to live in the present and to imagine a future again. She dreams of becoming a grandmother one day. Because resilience does not mean forgetting. For Gülseren, it means choosing to live, one day at a time. Aslat Baştiati World, Kahramanmaraş, Türkiye.
Here in the studio is Ali Aslan, an Associate Professor of Political Science and International Relations at Ibn Khaldun University. Ali Aslan, thank you so much for coming in. I've lived in Turkey now for 8 years, but for someone who is Turk, has lived in this country, was born in this country, are all Turks taught from a very young age how to prepare for earthquakes? It's famous, this country, for having so many fault lines and tremors, thousands and thousands of tremors a year.
Actually, we got training in schools from the early years. And sometimes we practice before the earthquake in our living places. And we also read a lot of news, a lot of comments on TVs and discussions about earthquakes. But still, there are problems preparing for the earthquake, especially for Istanbul. Still, these issues are debated. And the government making some preparation for a potential earthquake for the future. But still, I don't feel prepared for the earthquake.
About a year or so ago, some engineers came to my house. I don't live very far from the office. They were sent by the government.
Yes.
They made holes in 2 walls in my apartment and they put steel rods in there. They said it's making your building stronger.
Yes. They look at the buildings, how they are resilient. They did the same thing for my father-in-law's building. They evacuated the building, by the way. And they are evacuating many buildings in their district. So they are rebuilding those buildings to prepare for the earthquake. There are preparations, but it should be quicker.
Yeah. Listen, if you need a drink of water because you're struggling a bit, I'm going to ask you the question, you drink. When something like this happens on such a huge scale, it really highlights the contract between state and citizen. How has that progressed over the past 3 years? The responsibility of the state is huge.
Yes. This, this earthquake in Kahramanmaras and other 10 cities, and what the government has done so far, I think, strengthened the tie between the citizen and the state, because they see the state is taking responsibility for those stricken by the earthquake. The government rebuilt the buildings. They also help other issues to those people. I think ties between citizen and state strengthen, and also we know previous cases in those cases, previous earthquakes, especially in last 20 years. Government took responsibility and responded quickly and very responsibly to those problems after the earthquake.
You hear words like resilience, strength, courage, rebirth. I like the word solidarity, especially when it comes to the international aspect of the response. So quickly, so many countries sent assistance. In the end, 90 countries at least helped Türkiye to recover.
Yes, they did. International solidarity also played an important role in this earthquake. Many countries, as you said, helped Turkey. Also solidarity within the society. We have a lot of political cleavages, conflicts, and in those times, those conflicts are just forgotten, and people help each other. I know, how people help the others. They even go and, took off the rubbles and save the people with their hands. So solidarity with other states, international solidarity, also solidarity within the society also increased in those times.
And looking forward, how much has it affected how people live, where they choose to live? For me, when I hear a big noise, a bang, I have to look outside my apartment to see if my building is shaking. We had an earthquake, was it about 6 months ago or so? Yes. I was terrified.
Yes. Yeah, it's, people should be prepared for an earthquake because Turkey is sitting on an earthquake region.
Yeah.
So you have 2 options, either to prepare for earthquake, strengthen your building, or leave the country. The second option is not a choice for many people. So we have to choose the first one, prepare for earthquake, how to act within in time of earthquake, or how to prepare for the earthquake. strengthen our buildings, or maybe, you know, opening spaces among the buildings.
Yes.
If you go some places, especially in Istanbul, you can see, you know, there is no place to move. If those buildings are collapse, even ambulances, or, you know, those, you know, people who come to rescue those people after the earthquake cannot access those people. So we should make preparations. And as I told before, we should be quicker than what we are doing now.
Absolutely. I check my earthquake bag every night.
Yeah.
Water, toilet paper, extra clothes, strong shoes, torch, and a whistle. The whistle is important. Ali Aslan, thanks so much for coming in. It's a day of remembrance across Turkey. Stay with us. That's the end of this edition of the News Hour. Bye-bye.